I'm going to apologize that some of the pixelization, the resolution on these pictures is not as sharp as I would like them to be. And that is because the person who gave them to me kind of gave them to me in a dump of images that I got kind of a lot of all at once, and so it was a lot of data. And it actually, they had to put it in a zip file, and like, well, okay, let me break down the pixelization, then I can send you a bigger file. So I got a bigger. I'm hoping in the near future, and there's a reason why none of these are on my website right now, and that's because I don't have the top resolution images of this, and the person who I got these from does have them, and I want to make sure I get all of that data, but we're going to have to sort of figure out how to do that, and I'm going to have to sit at my computer for 6 hours while it downloads 20 gigabytes of image data to my computer. Because a lot of these images take up a lot of space because they're really, really sharp. But some of these are a little blurry, and I apologize for that. But having analyzed as many of these as I can as closely as possible, I can also, as a professional observer, attest to their authenticity. So again, I apologize if they're too blurry for you to be convinced that I'm showing you real pictures, but I'm showing you real pictures. This is a Galactic Freedom Class TR-3B. The TR-3B, also known as the Black Manta, is built by Northrop Grumman. It is the workhorse of the Covert Military Space Program. Everybody uses these. I've been trained to fly these. I've flown in them. I have piloted them. Not the main thing that I flew around in, but I have been trained and have flown them. They are powered by a microatomic generator that is really close to this magnetogravitic propulsion drive, which again is this mercury spinning thing that creates this toroidal field and creates this lift. These are also atomic powered thrusters. So it reduces the weight of this vehicle by about 87%. Right? So instead of lifting up this heavy thing, it's more like lifting a balloon that isn't as heavy as you would think it would be. So these thrusters get a tremendous amount of push and pull, right, on this vehicle because it's not actually pushing against the actual amount of weight that equals this mass because of the ability to change the weight with electrogravitics and magnetogravitics. Super science, super physics, that's all it is. Okay? It's not outlandish stuff that doesn't happen, it's just things that we've come to understand through the late mid-20th century into the 21st century, that it's just better physics and science that we're coming to understand. So this was taken, you can see sort of this red rock formation there. This was taken somewhere in Utah, I believe, and there's a soldier down here taking a shot of it above. And so this picture has gone around a number of internal military documents and pamphlets for people going, look at our new Galactic Freedom Class, TR-3B. And so, this goes around in a pamphlet to people who have classification to see that. Next. I got a bunch of these, we'll go over them. This is a drone that was recovered in Brazil. And this is like a milk crate that it's standing on. And this thing's maybe about 3 feet high. And it's up against sort of a wood fence that you can see here. And it's got pieces of it, the suit that's still hanging off of it, but it's got this sort of metal framework in the legs and sort of that you can see. And it came down in a small vehicle and some kind of robot drone that had burned to nearly cinders, and the personnel who gathered it managed to stand it up and take a snapshot of it and go, look what we found. So no worries, no persons, real or imagined, were harmed. That was a drone, that was a little robot, and he's a crispy critter, so poor robot, but robots don't like humans, or do they? Right, okay, this is one of the new fighter craft that we have that is what we call it's a hybrid fighter, which has orbital capabilities, so this can fly into orbit, this can fly into space, okay? But it is also a high-speed atmospheric craft. In atmosphere, though, this thing is not going to go faster than about Mach 6. But if you know jet fighters, Mach 6 is really fast. Okay? Outside, and I'm not sure what its velocity in a vacuum is. I can tell you that we flew fighters in vacuum that could go upwards of about 80,000 miles an hour. It's really fast. For having been in that vehicle, I'm telling you that's really fast. But I can also tell you, when you're out in space, that doesn't seem as fast as you think it would. Okay? Because you're traveling pretty vast distances. So even at 80K, you're still kind of just kind of cruising along, right? Yeah. And it's only passing by and interacting with sort of other objects at those speeds that really give you indication of how fast you're traveling. So you do get the sense of motion for sure. But, you know, it's still just, when you're out in open space, 80K doesn't feel much different than 40K. Which doesn't feel much different than 20K. Which doesn't feel much different than 10K. Right? I mean, none of these thousands of miles an hour speed feel that different. And, you know, than 500 miles an hour. They don't feel that much different in space. They don't. What you also notice the differences when you're turning. So the vehicles that have these sort of, inertia drives that sort of reduce, or eliminate inertia in the vehicle. And I'll say reduce in the sense that at really high speeds, believe me, I could feel a left or a right turn, but not enough to, slam me into the wall, which is at the speeds that we're going at would happen here. But you have the ability to make these 90-degree turns, okay? But only up to about 25,000 miles an hour, all right? Beyond 25,000 miles an hour, what starts to happen is you start to curve a little bit, okay? So even though you have this inertial damper, the higher and higher you go, it's working, but not 100%. So at 80K, I mean, you don't just go up and like this, you still end up doing this curve. That's a long curve, but you can't just take those 90-degree turns anymore. It just doesn't happen. Physics says, no, you're not doing that. Not at that speed. Not at 80,000 miles an hour. You're not. That's against the laws of physics. No breaking the law. So, I don't know if you can really even see what that says on the side. I'm not sure if that's in there. Oh, does it? Does it? You can read that? Oh, good for you. Okay. Well, then we know who made that one. That's Boeing's. Okay, next slide.
Is that a one or two-seater?
It looks like a one-seater to me, but I can't really tell you for sure. Now, that's a hole at the bottom of the planet in Antarctica. Those of you who understand what Antarctica looks like can see that, hey, look, that's Antarctica. But that's the middle portion. There's a hole right in the middle. Now, some people would like to think and say they have experienced going into this hole and that there is a hollow earth. It's not hollow. It's honeycomb, right? So, sort of between surface and about 10 miles deep, okay, which is pretty far, but it's not all the way. All the way is much farther, okay? But between about the crust and about 10 miles deep, you have large honeycomb of pockets, cavities, okay? Like honeycomb, like a honeycomb. I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know whatever the word you used there, but, there's, sorry? Yeah, okay, it's the best I can come up with at the moment. So I would suggest that persons who entered this hole and experienced a cavernous space the size of, say, the continental United States of America, could not see to their edge of their right, could not see to the end of their left, might think, I'm in the middle of the earth. They might see an artificial fusion device creating internal light and go, that's the middle of the earth, the sun in the middle of the earth. All that really is bad observation at this point. Okay? It's just bad observation at that point. Right? It's someone misunderstanding the scale of the chamber that they are in and thinking that the entire planet is hollow when it tain't. Okay? Not at all. Honeycombed, first 10 miles, and then lots of hot magma, lots of solid stuff, nickel core, solid, hot, under pressure. Don't go there. It's not going to be fun. You're not going to like it. Okay? Nobody can live there. It's way too hot, way too much pressure. Except the crab people. There's no crab people. I'm kidding. You can't fly over the South Pole. You're not allowed. Planes are not allowed to fly over the South Pole, so you can't see that. If you wanted to fly over the South Pole and say, I want to fly over the South Pole, you're not allowed. You're not allowed. I'm told, and I imagine, there's another one over the North Pole, which I haven't seen, I don't have a picture of, but that's that one. So, yay, fun. Honeycomb Earth, not hollow Earth. That's crazy. But I'm bumping anyway, okay. Because honeycomb Earth to some people, that's still just as crazy. What are you talking about, right? No, it's not totally crazy. It's what we know to be the facts that we have evidence of. And the military has sent teams of people down there. I don't have privy to this. There was this, part of the Antarctic expedition, the Germans, the Nazis supposedly got down there. They did bring back a map. Okay, they do have a map of the sort of internal area that is also available. I don't have a copy of it right now, but you can look up that on the Nazi map of the underworld. I mean, they'll come up. It's got some large oceans and so forth. Now, NASA recently admitted that they found cavities of water larger than all the oceans on Earth beneath the ocean's floor. They admitted to that. Oh, we found some pockets of water bigger than all the water in the world that's under the ocean floor in some other pocket of water. Well, that would kind of mean that you could end up going down in there and find some pretty large bodies of water that could essentially be underground, sub-earth, subterranean seas. I know that's weird, right? But this is also something that people have been talking about for a while. So we kind of know that this trickle of information has come along, and I realize it's still kind of the edge of what, but pictures. Okay, next, just for fun. So where are we at? So this is a little blurry, but this is 3 guys in suits on Mars pointing out at some stuff. And I know you can't see that too well, and it could just be someplace here on Earth too. I understand that, because believe it or not, they look pretty similar in some areas. Right? I've been some places here, especially in the Southwest, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, that have a lot of the same iron oxide. Looks real similar. Now you may notice this sky up here, it's blue. There's blue sky on Mars. Yeah, okay. Shocker. Blue. The red is a tint they add. It's a tinting they add to the pictures. And my understanding is that's actually part of a psychological profiling to make it seem scary and dangerous. Don't go there. It's red and scary. Right? So when we see these images come back of this red sky and this red planet, ooh, I don't want to go there. That looks scary. Right? It's all just to mess with your mind. Next. So this is a photograph, and the picture that if actually you shrink this down a little bit, I'm not going to ask you to try and do that, but if you do shrink this down a little bit, it is quite a bit sharper, and you can see this is a pretty good image, but if you want to try, you sort of can. But I'm not sure how tiny you're going to have to go to realize, Right, but you can kind of see that at that resolution, like there is a pretty good image there. It's just when we blow it up big, it's really hard to see the clarity of it. But this is a photograph that was taken of the Milky Way galaxy from outside the Milky Way galaxy by one of our Naval Space Command ships. By the way, did you know there's a Naval Space Command? There's a Naval Space Command. Now, that's something that you can look up, and that's something that the military has had to admit recently. You can look up where the office of the Naval Space Command is. It's in on the East Coast. I want to say it's in Virginia. They recently promoted a commanding officer who was a former NASA guy to be the new CO of Naval Space Command. But no, we just launched a few rockets and satellites. It's nothing. No, bullshit. They run the fleet. Okay, Naval Space Command runs the fleet. I got their logo in there somewhere in here somewhere, but. Photographs the galaxy from outside the galaxy. Next. That is an Arcturan mothership. It's big. It's really big. Now again, and I'm not going to ask you to go through this every time, but again, if you shrink it down a little bit, you can actually see there is quite a bit of resolution. You can see here. These are large landing bays. Like every one of these sort of big dark spots is a large landing bay. This thing's about a mile wide, a mile across, and these things go all the way around. So this can literally support dozens of ships coming in at once, hundreds of ships coming and going per hour. Hundreds of vessels can come and go from this thing per hour. Okay, and do, from what I understand. Now, I can't tell you what they do with all of this stuff and what's all's on there, but that's bigger than some cities. And I imagine the way everything's packed together, there's probably more in there than in some cities. But that is a large, floating megalopolis of space traffic, which acts as a hub of activity, coming and going traffic and so forth that people can come and go to. And however many scout ships that they may have coming and going, can keep coming and going all day long. So whatever missions they're running are a lot all day long, right? They're running hundreds of vehicles in and out per hour. Next. Now, this also may look like it's on Mars, but it's not. This is actually in southern Utah, and there's this sort of hangar opening and this kind of roundish experiment, one of these sort of newer saucer-shaped space vehicle that they made coming out for a little test flight. And this one's got some sort of, again, when it's sort of a more clear picture, it's got some interesting kind of engineering to it that I'm a little confused by. I'm curious exactly why that configuration, but it's just, going out for a spin. Hey, let's take that thing out for a spin, see how it goes. Next. That's another one of our sort of experimental disc craft that we built. That is a United States, that is like a United States Naval Space Command ship that was built by us. So this is what we can build now, among other things. Does it say Boeing on it?
No.
But we can build stuff like this now. We've been able to build stuff like this for a while, years, decades. But now we make them shiny. I mean, it's all shiny and nice, and it lights up, right? It's pretty. We're getting really good at making these like shiny, good-looking spaceships. So this is a current level of technology that we built. Might have been built here on Earth, I'm not sure. But we also have manufacturing on the Moon, have manufacturing on the Mars. Could have been built in any one of those locations. But we built this. This is a terrestrial human Earth spacecraft. So we don't necessarily need everybody else's spaceships anymore. We do have our own. Next. Another image from another location of the Galactic Freedom class of the TR-3B. This is a slightly different model and configuration, which means that the actual diameter of it is probably a little bit different. And sort of what is kind of normally in kind of a red glow on these other vehicles, now you're really just seeing this kind of obfuscated area, which sometimes visually happens when you're looking at it or when you take a picture of it. And because of the electromagnetic disturbance here, you just end up kind of with this dark spot in the picture. But you can still see sort of the red lights and the white expulsion from the atomic thrusters. But that's a newer one. And they are also very shiny and pretty inside and look very spacey. They're pretty cool. Right, next. This is another of the sort of hybrid jet fighters that we're making. As you can see, it's sort of similar to that Boeing one we're looking at here, but I believe this is a different one. But, there's a guy in the cockpit. You can see him. But again, this is a vehicle that can not just only travel in the atmosphere, but it can head up into space. And how far, I couldn't tell you. I haven't looked at the specs, but this is a hybrid fighter craft that can travel in the atmosphere or in outer space. Next. Another one on the ground. Next. Now, as you can see, this is one of the Mars rovers. Now, the question is, who's taking the picture? Well, it turns out it's one of the other rovers. So this is how close they are, right? So this is one of the rovers taking a picture of one of the other rovers, saying, "Ah." And again, now there's some haze in this sky, but again, it's it's blue. But that's again, you can see there's haze, cloud cover. It's not always sharp, clear. There's atmosphere there. It can change. So that's a kind of an overcast day. It looks like there.
I got chemtrails there too.
No geoengineering trails that I know of. Next. There's another new one. Now, this has some weird wings. I mean, check that shit out. What the hell is that all about? I have no idea. I'm a pilot, and I'm not sure why the hell you'd want to do that. But this just looks cool, right? I mean, this looks pretty modern. Now, what I'm to understand, this is a drone. This is not an actual piloted fighter. This is a drone fighter. This is, again, a hybrid vehicle. But what I'm also to understand is that this is one of the new test vehicles, test drones, which is actually run by an artificial intelligent computer that's a biological brain connected up to a electronic computing system. So it's a hybrid of an electronic computer and a biological brain that makes an artificially intelligent drone controlling piloting system. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. We don't want those. We've seen how that movie works out too, right? And it's not good. Don't give the machines power over the death weapons. It's bad. We've seen that one. It's not a good ending. We don't want Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back in time, call with me if you want to live, right? We don't want that. Next. This is one of sort of these galactic maps. This is an orientation map, which just kind of shows, here's us, a little pink sun, right there, that's us. Now, interestingly enough, and it's sort of outlining these, I wish I can't quite read that, but it's sort of outlining the sort of areas, the Norma arm, and the kilo R6 ring, and it's all diagrammed. But what we have that is of note is it tells us where we are right here, but it also has these yellow markers on it. Now this is interesting. There's a little star here, and there's a little star here. There's a little circle here, and there's a little cross here. So these mean something different, right? Okay, each one of these is a different symbol identifying what exactly these locations are. But what I can tell you is that on these maps, if it's in yellow, that means that we have a base there. We either have a base or an embassy or a presence in these locations.
In the black hole?
What's that? And you might be able to find this online, I'm not sure. I mean, I know the person that gave me this and dumped this likes to spread their stuff all over the internet. Former NASA employee, former disgruntled NASA employee with an axe to grind. Oh, fire me, will you? I left a back door in, and I'm going to spread your pictures all over the internet. So, yay, disgruntled NASA
Is that
employees.
in the middle of the galactic bulge there?
Say again, the what now?
The one right in the middle.
Sagittarius A, the black hole,
Yeah.
right there.
Do we have a base there too?
No. I don't think I'm not exactly sure. That to me, that is an indicator that we have the rumors that this is actually a transgalactic portal, and this would indicate to me that we have a presence through that hole. That is what that would indicate to me, without necessarily telling more. It would just be like more through here. Okay? But this is not a specific map, so I mean, someone looking at this might go, but people who know how to read this map and know what these symbols mean and so forth might way better understand what these are. But this is telling us these are distinctively telling. Is this a military base? Is this just an embassy? Is this a different kind of presence? What is it? And those are all defining that. And I don't have the key to that, so I can't tell you. But we have more of these too. If save your questions, you can write it down if you can. I know we didn't hand out cards and pencils for people to write down the questions, but try and keep your question and remember it and get to me later. Otherwise, we might not get through all these. So next, who's going next one? That is a Habano, and so you can. It kind of loses sort of fades into the picture here, but the edge is coming down around here. This is the anti-aircraft gun mounted underneath. This is sort of the top dome of it, and it's kind of a close-up picture where it's not all in frame. The edges go off to the side, but it's a kind of a close-up shot taken from the ground, probably while it was in motion by the looks of it. Next. Okay, so recently we have some news that there's running water on Mars. Yay, right? To some of us, this is not a surprise. Some of us would even suggest, oh really? Well, how about the forests? And as you might be able to see up here, this says source, NASA, JPL, and 555. These still have the NASA and the JPL timestamps on them. And it has Mars location, longitude, latitude, midway out, south polar region below cap. Oh. I touched it too hard, I'm sorry. I touched it. Don't touch it. Don't go anywhere. It says it's the fourth of 5 images. It's at 107% resolution. And you'll note down here at the bottom, if you can read it, it says bio life immediately below third image, left panel, works downward in right panel. So that's kind of telling you where to look. And I'm going to admit that looking at this is hard to actually identify because this is taken in an infrared picture, exactly what they're talking about. In this picture, what the biological life is other than trees. These are trees. Some of the next pictures are a little bit better and define these better. These sort of look deciduous to me, like oak or, elm trees or something. I have another picture that shows pretty distinctive pine or fir trees, tall sort of trees. And some of it a little bit of it. Running water. Got to have rain for trees, people. Right? So there's more than running water. There's atmospheric weather. Water, rain, snow, stuff that maintains this life, that can maintain us, their breathing, etc., etc. I'm not saying it doesn't get really cold in places, and I'm not saying you want to just hang outside at night, but it is breathable. We can live there. We don't need spacesuits to walk the surface of Mars. All right? All right. So, running water. I raise your running water. Forests and rain. Next. More forests. Again, we have the time, the JPL stamps tells you what the web address that they got it out of, that it's listed at. Down mid-area, slightly right south polar cap in Mars chart 30. Third of 6 images, resolution 150%, adjacent to and slightly above. Second image shows closer view of shorter forest type. So this is showing sort of two different, with the sort of two different tree sizes, a taller forest type and a shorter forest type. I've stared at these long enough, and if you stare at these pictures long enough, you can start to see the shading of this sort of infrared photography, and it doesn't just look like a blur. But I realize that if you're maybe just looking at this for the first time, you might be going, that's blurry to me. I just see blur. It's forest. So maybe you can see that, maybe you can't. But if you stare at it longer, that sort of the texture of the contrast of the black and white becomes more visible over time as you stare at them. Next, please. We got next. More trees, I think. I don't know. Somewhere we got more trees, but there's other stuff I got to get to. Next, please. Okay, now you can think what you like of this or not, but I think it's pretty clear that we're looking at the remnant skeletal structure of a skyscraper. More than one. We clearly have 3 corners sort of still intact. This is basically gone over here, but you still have one of these sort of tall girders standing. Anyone who's ever seen post Hiroshima or Nagasaki pictures knows what happens to giant concrete buildings when they get blown away. The metal structures still stand. So these are metal structures still standing, possibly thousands of years after the original buildings were built and had people in them, and have since the surface of the planet blown away, and this is all that's left. Now this is interesting because we have no idea how deep buried under the sand this is. Right? This is the top of something. We don't know how far it goes down to the foundation. This could be a much, much, much taller structure, depending on how much sand and dust piled on top of it. Could be a lot. Could be a lot. That could be a very tall structure. We wouldn't know until we send some archaeologists there to look at it. Where? Mars. This is on Mars. So, maybe we should send some archaeologists to actually, look at this shit and tell us what it's made out of. Right? So this is also a satellite image. It was taken from a satellite onto the ground. That's again why you have kind of this contrast and this resolution of it, because it is taken from orbit, not from the sky exactly. Next, please. That's the patch, the emblem for the Deutschland Antarctic expedition, 1939. So this is the thing here. It says New Schwabenland in it. So there was a patch. If you went on that expedition, you got that patch. You got to wear it on your shirt. Cool, I got to go to the Antarctica. I went to the Deutsche Antarctica expedition, and all I got was this lousy patch, right? So there was one. Next, Naval Space Command's logo. Again, they've had to admit recently that there is one. They just, don't acknowledge how big Naval Space Command is. But those of you who know a little bit about Air Force Space Command, some people would like to think that Air Force Space Command is really like Space Command. I like to refer to them as the Sanford and Son of the space program. They get to watch the space garbage. Right? That's their main job. And the Air Force Space Command is to watch the garbage, pay attention to where the debris is going. They get to boldly sit where no man sat before. And the Navy, in fact, gets to actually run the ships. Again, because when it comes right down to it, do you want a bunch of Air Force guys running your ships, or do you want Navy guys doing it? And you want Navy guys doing it because it's what they've been doing for centuries. Centuries. They've been running big ships out in the middle of the nowhere where everyone can die. Well, space is the same. So again, you want that shipmate mentality, that teammate mentality. You want an officer structure that's used to that. So you don't give it to the Air Force. They're a bunch of dingleberries. You give it to the Navy. Give it to the Navy. So, go Naval Space Command. And again, in case you didn't think there was one, there is one. There's the logo. Okay, next. That is another sort of infrared image of the Milky Way galaxy taken from outside the galaxy. So again, a lot of the reason why you're seeing this contrast in colors because it's taken in sort of infrared image, so it's showing the heat signature of the galaxy from the side, from a ship that we flew outside the galaxy. Yay. Go us. This is a bunch of Soviet soldiers in their old school hats and coats and a vehicle that crashed down in the ground that they're attempting to recover. Circa 1960 something. It's color. Next.
Is that on Earth?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Somewhere in the old Soviet Union. Couldn't tell you where. This would be one of the first alien reproduction vehicles from Project Aurora. So as you can see, it says USAF, US Air Force, you know, it's an experimental aircraft. It's got the disc shape because it's using these sort of magneto-electrogravitics of these disc-shaped craft. But, you know, we weren't really sure what else to do, so we basically took an airplane cockpit, you know, control system and stuck it on top of a disc craft and said, that's our first alien reproduction vehicle. Woo! So our first try were these hybrid vehicles. Again, they sort of looked a lot like a plane and a weird spaceship flying saucer at the same time, and so that's one of the first ones. And this is another one back here right behind it, another one, a little bigger one. And so basically this is them, you know, taking it outside the hangar, getting everyone to gather and take a picture and then stick it back in the hangar where no one can see it. And they probably only flew the stuff at night most of the time, probably. And this is probably, you know, this could be Groom Lake or one of the other facilities where you're, again, miles away from people looking, but you still wouldn't just leave these things out where people could fly over at high altitudes and take pictures, because you know that they are. Anyway, Project Aurora. Okay, next. Anyway, that was in the 60s, so we knew that. Oh, look at her. Okay. She's pretty. Right? She looks kind of human, but not. The ear's kind of a giveaway, right? She's got something different going on in her pupils there too, her eyes. That's a little different. Yeah, she's kind of pretty. And as some other women pointed out when I was showing this picture, she's got makeup on. Now, as a dude, I just see pretty face. I don't necessarily think that she had to do all this makeup, but then I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, she does. She does makeup there. Okay. So that's an interesting question. Did we get makeup from aliens, or did they get it from us? Like, who came up with that one first? Are we mimicking them when we do that? When you put on your makeup, in fact, are you mimicking an extraterrestrial ritual that happens all the time, or are they mimicking us when they do that? I don't know, but inquiring minds want to know. I want to know. So. Genetics, fair enough. So this woman is a member of a species called the L. E-L. The L. The L. 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 This is where we start crossing paths between mythology, legend, and reality. Okay? I could not tell you, but the person who I got this picture from said that they talked to the person who took this photograph. This was apparently taken on planet Earth, and she was apparently here. That's some, you know, Earth trees and stuff in the background. But he said he talked to the person who took this picture and said that, you know, she would be about 5'7", 5'8", you know, sort of human height, average human height, or tall-ish maybe. You know. And I think that's the last one, because I was just thinking, ta-da! Like, I got a picture of an alien. But it's interesting, right, how she doesn't look as alien as some aliens could look, because we've certainly seen photographs of Zetas and so forth, and they look very different. She looks a lot more like us. So what I can tell you from the most blessed set of experiences that I ever got to have were as the tour that I did as a pilot on the EDF SS Nautilus, which stands for Earth Defense Force Starship Nautilus, under the command of Captain Roger P. Kirkland. Kirkland? Hey, lots of guys got names, right? Kirkland's a fairly common name, right? That's all I got to say to that. But one of the most interesting jobs that I got to do was I was probably one of the only pilots on the ship that had previous infantry experience. And so when we would often, the ship and would get called to either do these diplomatic missions, which were mostly to the intergalactic space station that orbits around Jupiter. There's an intergalactic space station that orbits around Jupiter, in case you didn't know that. The reason it orbits around Jupiter is for people coming from the outside of our solar system to here, if you tell them, no, there's an intergalactic space station in the Sol system. Well, where is it? Big dead gas giant, can't miss it, right? So, you know, right? It's the biggest object in the solar system, so having an intergalactic space station orbiting Jupiter is because it's the easiest thing to find. You don't want to go, no, it's over near Mercury. Mercury, I can't find it. Like, I mean, the big dead gas giant, can't miss it. So, and this is a pretty good sized facility. I couldn't tell you exactly how high up or down it goes, but the main observation deck, which is where most of these meetings take place, which our personnel, many different extraterrestrial species and personnel come to this intergalactic space station to negotiate contracts, to have, meetings to, all kinds of sort shit out. We got a business deal, a trade deal, we got to sort some contract out, you want this, we want this, contracts. I'll also say this to divert something. The number one thing that everyone out there wants to do is trade stuff. Okay? So trade is the fundamental basis of intergalactic life. I come from a planet where we have a bunch of something. You come from a planet where you have a bunch of something. I could use some of what you have. You probably want some of what I have. Let's make a trade deal. The oldest thing in the book, right? I got something extra, you got something extra, let's trade. So that is the number one thing that people get out there to do is trade. So probably one of the main things that we do now in our conversations with other species is discussing trade. So being one of the only officers with infantry experience, they wanted to have someone come along who was their just-in-case guy. Now this was a very, very calm, regulated place. There was never a moment for just-in-case. But because they needed a just-in-case guy, I got to go along. So I didn't get to do anything other than sit there, and listen in sort of the conversation. Occasionally someone would ask my opinion or question, and I would, offer up whatever I thought, but I'm mostly concerned oh, what do I know? Why are you asking me? I'm just here just in case. But I can tell you, having sat at that table a number of times with a number of different species, that you have this wide variation in possibility, okay? But you do have a lot of people who look really similar to us. And you have just as many people that look completely different to us. You have a scale of size, right? I think the smallest person species I ever saw come in for a meeting about 18 inches high. It's kind of tiny. The largest person I ever saw in this room was probably no more than about 45 feet tall. This is a room with a ceiling over 60 feet high that is over 100 meters end to end. And it looks, I don't know if it's actually glass, but it has windows that go all the way around 360 degrees. So you have this massive observation deck that looks out to Jupiter into space, and that everyone can have these lovely little meetings and have this pretty view. And it can accommodate anyone of any size. They can accommodate a number of different sort of biological abilities. So if you could come into the space and breathe the same atmosphere, That's cool. There's a lot of oxygen-breathing critters that can sort of breathe oxygen in this atmosphere. Some people still might need an assisting apparatus, that they might need, some of their own gases in or something. But you can also they can set up any kind of an arrangement. So you can I have seen a large tank of water with people in one side of a table and people in another side of the table not in water having a conversation. Okay? So, you can have really different stuff. I watched a 25-foot guy sitting at a very large table that had a little tinier table on it, that when the 18 inches guys came up, they sat at the little tiny table on top of the big table, and they had a conversation. Okay? Now, the guy, he's sitting down. I'm guessing he was about 25, 27 feet tall. He's big. 18 inches looks small. Next to each other, he looked huge, and they looked way tiny. The perspective was really nutty. It's a period of sometimes your brain trying to adjust to these differences that you're seeing. We're literally, sometimes, I had to look down at the table and go, oh man, that just makes my head hurt. And not because your neural pathways have to move, right? They move and they adjust. So when you're seeing all this new information, your neural pathways are moving around and adjusting. And sometimes it was literally just so painful. All I would have to do is kind of just stare at the table for a minute and take a few deep breaths and let my brain adjust. Because it was just information so radically new and different that's what would have to happen for your brain to sort of accommodate. It was just neural pathways going, wait a minute, this is going to take a minute for us to understand. We got to move over here to make that make sense. But what I can tell you is what an amazing process that we engage in this continuous conversation with other species, mostly for trade. Okay, we have a few problem children, right? That we militarily concern ourselves with, and we, get out of our yard, and we'll shoot at them because they're, troublemakers. They're our intergalactic troublemakers. We'll just get away with whatever they can. Because in some ways, like children who are raised poorly, they get away with whatever they can, and they realize that's the model, and you have entire species that sometimes live by that model. We've been able to get away with it for this long. Why change? Right? If that's been your MO for thousands of years, why do anything different? But we have this amazing interaction that's mostly peaceful, that's mostly conversation, that's mostly trade, that's mostly people of a wide variety of differences getting together to understand commonality, which is you have something I need, I have something you need. Let's get together and talk about how we mutually benefit each other by me getting you what you need and you getting what we need. And we'll talk about how many ships it's going to take and how much cargo it's going to take and what you're going to give me and what time schedule. That's contract negotiation, right? So they have to do the same thing. We have to work out the nuts and bolts of contracts. And that's mostly what we do. So we have established a military space fleet to protect the solar system, protect the planet, protect Mars, protect the colonies on Mars, protect our bases elsewhere in the solar system. But mostly protect them from just a few agitators. But I'm telling you, those few agitators can ruin your whole day. Okay? Right? Agitators with spaceships and death rays are serious. You either have to match that with your own spaceships and your own death rays, or, it's War of the Worlds all over, right? And it's not a happy story because, we get stomped on. It's a happy story when we can fight back, right? And establish sort of territorial, this is ours, that's yours. If you're going to come into our territory, be polite, or we'll ask you to leave. If you don't leave, maybe we'll blow you up, depending on how rude you are about it. But we have a protocol and a procedure for that. So we don't just shoot people out of the sky for no reason. We give people fair warnings. We let them know that they can't be here if they can't be here. People who have come here and are staying here, we have to let them know you have to go. If they don't want to leave, we'll continue to let them know they have to go. And if they continue to not leave, then we'll continue to let them know that they have to go. And eventually down the road, we'll evict them. So we used to have a zeta problem. The zeta reticulans, also known as the small whites. People call them grays, except they're not gray. They're white. So people inside the military-industrial complex, we don't call them grays ever. Sometimes they used to be referred to as small whites as opposed to the tall whites. But that was old school. Once we really started to understand that they were a group, where they were from, and that there were factions of them, we had to start identifying them by a more specific name. So we have the zeta A's and the zeta B's, and then we have the zeta A1s, and the zeta A2s, and the zeta A3s, and the zeta B1s, and the zeta B2s, and the zeta B3s, and the zeta B4s. 7 distinct factionalizations of a single species, which are in conflict with each other. That's why we have A's and B's, but they're also divided into separate groups that are not necessarily cooperating with each other, but simply have the commonality of A or B as their enemy in common. That's why they have numbers to associate them, but to distinguish them. That gets complicated. Okay? This is how complicated this kind of negotiation and understanding of species can become. It's not always just about understanding a single species, where they come from, what they want to do. Sometimes it's about understanding that a single species arrives and you realize there's 7 different factions of them who want 7 different things, and if you don't pick the right side or the right friend, you may be sorry. In fact, that's what happened. We picked the wrong friend. Okay? And so when they first arrived and made a deal, we took the deal. It was a bad deal. We found out a few years later it was a bad deal, and we had made the wrong friend. Decades later, as we develop this massive space fleet, we finally get the ability to tell them, and over time we continue to have these conversations. We know we said that was okay, but we've changed our mind. It's not okay. You need to stop the abductions. You need to stop picking people out of their beds at night. You need to stop doing whatever tinkering program you're doing. We've learned enough about what you're doing. We don't like it, and we're telling you that you need to stop. Well, we have a contract. Yes, you do, but we disagree now with the premise of that contract. And so thus ends a contract dispute. Decades long, right? Where we tell them no, and they keep saying, well, we have a contract. When we finally develop enough muscle to get rid of them, we finally say, okay, now you got to go. And we evict them from planet Earth. And then they have one forward operating base on Ganymede, or at this time had. And we tell them, you got to go. We blockade Ganymede, they can't come or go. You got to go. Still, they're not going to leave. After about 5 years of, you got to leave. No, we're not leaving. Yes, you have to leave. No, we're not leaving. Yes, you have to leave. No, we're not leaving. We finally issued them an eviction notice, and we kicked their ass and blew their ass off that rock. Okay? So we no longer have a Zeta presence. What we have are drones, clone drones, of Zetas that continue to be teleoperated by other people, including our military personnel. It's a technology that the Zetas used. Not a single Zeta reticulan physically stepped foot on planet Earth ever. They would die. But they can teleoperate a clone drone that you wouldn't know the difference of. You'd think that was an alien. You wouldn't realize that it's a biological drone being teleoperated from someone on the ship. But they are. That was the technology they used. Once we learned that technology, we adapted it. We took it, we stole it, we used it. And sometimes people still use these Zeta reticulan clone drones, so you can blame, that guy did it. They become a scapegoat. So for some people, they continue to be the scapegoat. They continue to be, that guy did it. But I can assure you, having participated in the bombing operation on Ganymede, they are no longer here, they are gone, goodbye. So, long story short, we do have the ability to set our space. We do have the ability to tell who can come in and who can't. We do have the ability, you need to go, you need to be evicted, you're out of here. We do have that ability. So we have gone from, what are we going to do? To, I said go. And then if you don't go, all right, I got a fleet of guys with death-rays and particle beams and, we'll vaporize you. So I think we're going to take a break.